Barry Barron. I was in the Army. I started out as a private like everybody else, and when I was retired, I started in the military in July of '67, July 10th of '67, and I was retired January 15th of 1970, and I was retired. I was a staff sergeant. I was born in Kankakee. After my mom passed away, I said my father married Janice DeTillo, whose husband had passed away, so we had a combined family. So I had two new brothers, and myself and my sister, and we lived on May Avenue, 440 South May Avenue, right down the street here. And then they sold that house, and the DeTillos sold their house, and then they bought a place on Beckman Drive in Bradley, and we lived there for quite a while. And the marriage didn't work out, and then my dad, they got a divorce. Then we moved to Bradley, and I lived in a trailer at the end of Broadway. It was Spees' Trailer Park. So I went to Longfellow Grade School when I was little, K through 6th grade, and then when we moved to Bradley, I went to Bradley Central, and from 7th and 8th grade, then of course we went on from there to Bradley High School, where I had my freshman, sophomore, and junior years. Had a great high school time, and I was quite active in sports. July of '67, I went in and I went to Fort Leonard Wood for basic training. After that, since I was an airborne volunteer and I was an infantry, my MOS was going to be 11B Bravo. They sent me to Fort Gordon, Georgia, and every morning we got up and we did the physical fitness test that it would take for you to get into jump school. We went to Fort Benning, Georgia, where the jump school was. It was also the home of the 82nd Airborne. So it was a 3-week course, jump school was. The first week they called ground training, ground school, and they ran you everywhere you went. You had to run. You couldn't stand still. In that week they taught you how to roll on the ground. When you come down on a chute, they taught you how to do what's called a parachute landing fall, and a bunch of other things. You did calisthenics a lot of the time. And let's see, the second week then was what they called Tower Week. They have say 3 250-foot towers, like, and they would snap your chute in this round hoop, like, and haul you up 250 feet, and then they let you go, and you'd float down and land on the ground, and you had to make at least one perfect parachute landing fall. Well, it was quite windy that week, and you could have landed on your head, and they would have gave you a thumbs up, perfect landing, and sent you on the jump week, which we jumped out of the planes. Well, everybody passed that, and we go to jump week, and we go down and we jumped out of C-119s. They called it the flying boxcar, and it had like 2 fuselages and the wing, and we jumped out of the back 2 doors of the fuselages at 1,200 feet. Okay, so a lot of people say, "Well, man, weren't you scared?" And I said, "Not the first jump. I wasn't. I wanted to get it out. I wanted to jump out of that plane so bad." And so the first jump went great. I landed on the ground, and you were pretty pumped up. and then you had to go and roll your parachute up and bring it back to the drop area. And the second day, your second jump was a little different. I landed pretty hard my first jump, not knowing what to expect, because it's like jumping off of a rim of a basketball court. You know, the basketball rim. It's like jumping off of that and hitting the ground. That's what they told us. And but the third day, they had stands not too far away from where we were, where visitors could come and they could watch the guys jump. Man, it was pretty cool, because there wasn't just one plane. There was like 5 or 6 planes coming over the drop zone, just pouring out of that plane, and it was just a bunch of chutes up in the air. Well, we had a African American guy, and I forget his name, and he had called his girlfriend the night before, and he said, "You got to come over and watch me jump." This is what we heard anyway. And she said, "Well, how will I know who you are?" And he says, "Well, I'll be the only guy with 2 chutes open." So as soon as he left the plane, he pulled his second chute, his reserve chute, and it wrapped around his mane, and they call that a cigarette roll. And you're supposed to try to work it out and work it out in that. And on the ground they have the cadre, they have these bullhorns, and they're yelling and telling you what to do if something's going on. And he ran over, and the guy just spiraled down, and that guy went over there and he did a body block like into him, broke his arm, the cadre guy. And so that was it for him, because he compressed his spine and did something to 2 or 3 vertebrae. And they said he couldn't jump, he couldn't make his 5. You got to have 5 jumps to qualify as a paratrooper. Well, he couldn't get through it, but they gave him his jump wings anyway. We were glad for him. He didn't break his back and become paralyzed. But so then I made my 5th jump, and this sergeant came by, and he had a little tray of jump wings, and we were all lined up out there in the field, and he'd take that jump wings, and they call them blood wings, and he'd take it and slam it into your chest, where it stick into your chest, and then you'd have to take it out and put little clips on the back to hold it onto your uniforms. So and we didn't know about that, or we hadn't heard about it until after our last jump. But that was pretty cool. Then when we're done with that, they sent us home for leave again, because we're going to Vietnam. We all went to Fort Lewis, Washington, and we were there for a while. And that was a place where guys left, and also guys came back from Nam and took off on McCord Air Force Base. We just kind of stuck together like, you know, birds of a feather. So we get into Cam Ranh Bay. They start handing out some of our equipment to us, like our belts and our rifles. And we looked around, and they were giving us all new. We all got brand new M16s. They come and there's 19 of us that they pull off to the side and says, "There's been a change in your orders. You're not going to go to the 101st at this time. There's an outfit down in southern Vietnam that needs troops badly." So they took 19 of us. We were all what's called jump qualified jumpers, and you're going to the 9th. So we all pile in the orderly room, and the orderly room's probably not much bigger than half of this here space. And the guy says, "What's up here?" And they said, "Well, we want to go to the 101st. He said, he kind of laughed at us, and he said, "Boys, you're not going anywhere. You take your gear and go unpack it. You're staying right here for your tour." So that's where we stayed with the 9th Infantry Division. They were all straight, what they called straight legs. They never jumped out of a plane or anything. Well, it turned out everything was all right. It just wasn't the best terrain. You know, the weather was terrible. It was in down in the Mekong Delta was the southern end. It's where they raised all the rice, and that's where they raised the mosquitoes. So we jump on helicopters and start going, and we're going to the North 40 of the base camp, and one helicopter starts going along the side of this rice paddy, and they were blowing smoke out of it, like for camouflage or to hide us. So whoever was in the tree line couldn't see where the helicopters were landing or see who was getting out. So, and then the door gunners on the helicopter started firing their machine guns. And man, I tightened up like you could, and we finally get on the ground, and we jump up on the ground, and I says, "Where's the rest of our fire team?" He said, "Oh, you're it." I was the only guy in the fire team, and I thought, gee, Woody Christmas, what have I got myself into? We get in different positions, and out of the woods comes Mama-san and Baby-san, and they're carrying on their shoulder baskets of stuff. Baskets of beer, baskets of Pepsi and Cokes and goodies and whatever, and they're coming over to us to sell it to us. And I thought, what's going on? This can't be too bad. Well, I didn't know that the North 40 was just on the other side of the base camp, so it was relatively safe. Other times we'd go out for security. And down in the Mekong Delta, they would take their artillery on barges, and they would tie them up to the shoreline and tie them off, and they would provide support for whatever units were out looking for Charlie. Well, one night I'm out there, and I think there's just me and another guy, and I'm sitting down, and it had been raining there, and all of a sudden I feel this something on my neck. I didn't know what it was. It was a centipede. Ooh. That was about this long. And I grabbed it, and it crunched, and I threw it away. So I stood up the rest of my lookout time, and I'm looking out there, and it starts getting really dark. And I'm looking out there, and I see fireflies or lightning bugs out there lighting. And then I look over, and there's like a bush, maybe 50 yards out, 75 yards out, and these fireflies were on this bush, and they were going off and on in unison, off or on. And I was looking at this, and I thought, what the heck am I? And so when I came back, I'd tell people this story. I'd never seen fireflies like that. And I think people thought I was kind of dinky out. There was a lot of funny stuff that went on, and it took your mind off of what was going on. And then there was horrible stuff that went on that I think you remember more than the funny stuff. When I was there, 12 of my friends got killed. Out of those 12, 6 drowned. Because we were down in the Delta, going through these rivers and swamps, and I'd go out and deal blackjack. They loved to play cards and fish. I'd take a fish one-on-one, and if they were pretty okay, I'd take 2 guys out at a time, and we'd fish. And they'd be happy if they caught a fish this big. And I said, I don't know who was happier, me or them, I was asked by the former mayor, Ernie Mooney, if I wanted to be his treasurer, because I had the accounting background. And right. At the time, I said, why not? So I got into that for a while. Then I was asked to run for a trustee. and I ran for trustee and became a trustee. And then I went for the top dog position. I ran for mayor, came in second place. It was a close race. And I went to the county board. I was asked to replace somebody there, ran once again, and then I just took my political hat off. It was during the bicentennial year of the state of Illinois, they had chosen 200 veterans to represent the state of Illinois, and fortunately I got it, because there's lots of veterans out here that deserve it as much, if not more, than I did. And I was awarded the Silver Star, the Bronze Star, the Air Medal. That's people say, well, you were in the Army and you were on the boats. Well, every time we rode in the helicopters, if we were inserted into an unsecure area, they gave you, I don't know, check credit or something, or removed from that area, and then if you got so many of those, you got an Air Medal. So I got an Air Medal, Army Accommodation Medal, Good Conduct Medal. Pearl Heart, got one of those. Very humbled by all this stuff. We're a brotherhood.